Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide, and in this video I'm going to be covering something very special, something advanced but also very useful that native speakers often use, and this is native recaps and native transitions. Now, a recap means just to go back over something, and typically what will happen in a conversation is somebody will be explaining something, and then at the end of that, maybe they'll give a very short summary in the same way like I do with these videos. So I will explain something, maybe spend a couple of minutes explaining whatever the lesson is about, and then at the end I'll go back and say, today we did this. So you'll see this in lessons, and it's, just kind of a normal thing in everyday life. But the interesting thing is that if you can use this same pattern when you're using your own conversations or in your own conversations, you can sound much more native by doing the same thing. So you can use your regular, even if you're speaking in a textbook way, you can speak normally in an everyday way again, and then at the end of something, you can come back with a native sounding phrase, something that's conversational and native that an actual native speaker would use, and then you sound much more native. So it's a way of combining the normal English that you would use, maybe something again from a textbook, but with a phrase that comes back and recaps that. And you can also use these phrases as transitions. And I don't want to give too many of them, so we will cover 2 recaps and 1 transition in this video. Let's begin. Now, the first one, just so you understand these, we're using these transitions and recaps as a way of explaining something again in a native way. So you're actually repeating yourself, or in the case of a transition, you're just using this as a way to kind of move into something else. These are actually really 2 different categories of things, because a recap is a little bit different from a transition, but I just wanted to give you a taste of both in this video. So the first one is, let's say I'm describing a situation and it's maybe a negative thing. So a situation where I get myself into some trouble. So I was maybe wasting time. I should have been practicing or studying, but in the end, I decided not to do that thing. Now, when I'm telling these stories, I'm, again, at this point, just using very regular language. I'm speaking like a native speaker, but at the same time, I haven't used any more colorful idioms or recapped the sentences in any special way. So in this case, I'm describing situations where maybe I do something and it's not very successful, or I've created a problem for myself. So I begin by creating this situation, I'm telling a story, but at the end I recap that by saying, and then I painted myself into a corner. So I painted myself into a corner. Now, this is a great way of telling a story, but then recapping it with something that sounds a bit more interesting, like I painted myself into a corner. Now, to paint yourself into a corner is a regular casual expression that native speakers understand and use frequently when they're talking about if you're imagining yourself inside a room, and instead of starting at the door, maybe like as a way to get out of the room when you're finished, if you're painting the floor of a room and you start painting and then you reach a corner where you can't move at that point. So you paint and then, oh no, you realize you're stuck. So it's kind of a stupid thing you would do. You've painted yourself into a corner. If you walk, then, you're going to step on the paint and mess up the paint, and it creates all these problems. So this is a way of describing in a casual way, in a conversational way, that you created a problem for yourself. But notice what's really happening here. I'm describing something and I don't need to add that point at the end. I don't need to use that expression, but this is something that people will do when they're speaking English. They will explain something. And again, you might do this in your own native language as well, but this is a very common thing where native speakers will explain something and then they will recap it in a conversational way. So they will explain something, yeah, I did this, and then there was this other thing, and I'm explaining just a regular story. So I painted myself into a corner, or I ended up painting myself into a corner. I ended up painting myself into a corner. Our next example is if it's something positive. Now, just like the previous one, you can practice that and use that as a way of telling a story and then adding that at the end. This is another native recap where you can put something again that's instead of describing a problem that you create for yourself, this is describing something positive. And it's also using a cultural reference, which I highly recommend you use. Now, this isn't a video where I want to talk about too many cultural references, but the important thing is that when you're listening to things like this, if you don't quite understand something, it could be that a native speaker is maybe using a quote from a movie or some other thing in popular culture, like a song or some political thing, like, Trump recently make America great again. So now people are saying make other things great again, like make this restaurant great again or whatever. So people take that and it becomes a cultural reference that people use in their everyday conversations. So if you use something like make America great again, or make, my country great again, whatever that is, even as a joke, people will think that's funny because they're just talking about something that's related to popular culture. Now, in this example, if I'm describing something where I'm maybe feeling lucky, like I go out and I meet like a famous movie star, I'm just walking along the street and I see, wow, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio. And for some reason, maybe he watched a YouTube video of mine and he said, hey, Drew, like you should come on my private yacht with me and we're going to have a party and it's going to be awesome. And I say, wow. So I'm describing this story, but I'm still using very basic language. But then I recap that at the end by saying it was like I found the golden ticket. It was like I found the golden ticket. So finding the golden ticket, this is a cultural reference from the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or even the book, or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I forget the name of it. Maybe it's two different things. It's the same idea. But anyway, when you're using something like this, you're taking that cultural reference and you're just putting it at the end of the story just to make it sound more native. So it doesn't change anything, but it just makes you sound like you're telling a better story, and you're using an interesting way of completing that story. But you're really, again, not changing anything about it. So Leonardo DiCaprio came into my life and he said, hey, let's go to the, yacht. We got a bunch of people there. We're going to have a party. I said, okay. It was like I found the golden ticket. So in the book, in the movie, Charlie, the main character, he finds the golden ticket in a bar of chocolate, and then he uses that to go to the chocolate factory, and it changes his life forever. So people all over the world were looking for these golden tickets, but he was the lucky one who found it. So in my case, instead of just saying I was lucky, I'm using a cultural reference that makes that same point by saying it was like I found the golden ticket, or it was like I found a golden ticket. Now, the last one we'll cover is a native transition. And a transition just means we're talking about one thing and then we will explain something else, but we need to connect these two ideas. And we're trying to do this in an interesting way to tell a more interesting story. So let's say I'm talking about, maybe in this case, we could actually use a good situation or a bad situation. So we'll do the bad situation first. I'm walking home and I don't have an umbrella and it starts to rain, and I start describing all these bad things. A dog runs up and like bites my leg, and I drop my books in the water. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse. So this is, again, a native transition right here, this point where native speakers will use it exactly like that. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse. Or just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, like I get struck by lightning. So I get, like, lightning comes down and it zaps me and I get struck by lightning. So I'm explaining something and then I use the native transition in the middle to say, and just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, then this really bad thing happens as well. Again, you can also use the same thing in a good situation. So, and just when I thought it couldn't get any better. And just when I thought it couldn't get any better. So this is where you're describing a good situation. So I meet Leonardo DiCaprio and he takes me onto the yacht. And he gives me like $1 million. And just when I thought it couldn't get any better, he says, hey, would you like to have this boat for free? And I say, wow, yes, that would be amazing. So in this example, again, we're taking an idea, we're telling a story, and you don't have to sound native for the whole story, but if you can creatively use native recaps and native transitions, it will help you sound much more native. Well, I don't want to go too much into detail about these kinds of things, but if you want to learn more of these things, these are exactly the kinds of things that we teach in Master English Conversation and the Fluency course, which you can learn more about at EnglishAnyone.com. If you have liked this video, do click that like button, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you want to also develop just the English fluency habits, all of the things like being able to use these native transitions and native recaps like a native English speaker, if you want to sound more conversational when you speak, come to EnglishAnyone.com. You can click on the link right in this video and you can take our free fluency quiz, and it will tell you exactly what you personally need to do in order to improve. Often people just need to focus on improving one particular fluency habit, like listening or developing new pronunciation, better pronunciation, smoother pronunciation, or also learning new vocabulary. And we can help you do all of these things at EnglishAnyone.com absolutely free. So click on the link in this video if you'd like to take the free quiz. You can get started right now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye-bye.